Okay, so I went over all my slides except for like the last couple, and I added a couple quotes this morning. So if I mess up, that's where I will mess up. And but it's okay, because I really think I'm just going to read these teacher quotes, because it just gets so, it's just like exemplifies like the collaborative process that's going to have to happen at schools. And plus, my teachers are just so excited to be a part of this. So I'm going to type read the quotes.
Stop tampering, Cam.
All right, we have video and sound. We are live. We got another minute or two, but I just wanted to make sure we were good to go. So you are live right now, just giving you a heads up.
Okay.
But we'll wait a minute in case we got people joining us now. I don't want anybody planning on joining us, finishing up lunch, to miss out.
Fair enough.
Maddie, you've been on here about as much as me.
What can I say? I will grab any opportunity to work with the IT3 team.
Oh, thank you.
Are you all having a great day today?
Yeah, so far so good. How about you?
Doing well. Pretty excited. Our first round at this.
Yes. I think you guys are going to do great.
Thank you.
We've only been nerding out over this presentation for like 2 weeks at this point.
Okay, perfect. So you're all prepared. You won't need me to interject a lot. You got a solid 30 minutes ready to roll.
Sounds good. Yes.
All right.
But
That's the plan.
All right, it is 12:30. Welcome back to the JCPS Digital Learning Channel. I'm Stephen Durham, and I am here with some awesome people today. This is their first time doing this presentation, brand new information. I am going to introduce Noah, and Noah, I will let you take it away.
Thank you. So we are coming with you today to kind of talk about competency-based education and what it means and what its role might be moving forward in JCPS. We three, amongst many other educators from Shelby County and Jefferson County, have partnered with Southern New Hampshire University and Two Revolutions to study this work in an effort to bring it to the district. So if you give me my awkward 15 seconds of sharing my screen, we'll get going.
All right, let's do this.
Okay. All right. And then where do I find
If
those?
hover down there by the bottom corner, there you go. And should see closed captionings right there. And allow it. Yes, you got this. And then click the drop down and make them large.
Text size large. Got it.
Well done. Thank you.
All right. So again, we're here to talk to you all about competency-based education, and we're going to go ahead and introduce ourselves.
Hello, I'm Nancy Chiara. I'm the metadata librarian for Library Media Services.
My name is Noah Klein. I'm the AIC at the Academy at Shawnee.
And I'm Kim Linkart. I'm the math science academic instructional coach at Fraser Elementary School. And I'm going to be getting us started today. This term competency, we've all heard of this word before, but what does it really mean? We may have used it on our rubrics, but the understanding of this term is really critical as we move toward the world of CBE. And as you will see later, we are already headed in that direction. I like to think of the word competency as an analogy to cooking. In fact, just this week, my daughter became competent in using the toaster. It was a pretty big deal. She stated, "It was really nice to learn the toaster because now I can make waffles for my sister and help out my mom and dad." She now owns that skill and feels proud that she can do it independently. It's the same way for teachers. All teachers want their students to feel this sense of self-accomplishment and ownership in their classroom so that they can generalize and add to their learning over time. We all live surrounded by these real-world competencies. This learning becomes lifelong. We see it every day. My daughter will be able to utilize her toaster skills for the rest of her life. She'll also be able to add to those skills or competencies over time when she determines she is ready. There will be no specific time requirement for her. Instead, her cooking skills will build naturally at her own pace. Take a minute to think about a real-world competency that you own. Maybe it's riding a bike or driving a car. There are limitless examples of these real-world competencies, and that's where we're headed when we're thinking about learning in JCPS.
So for us to really understand competency-based education, we also have to have an understanding of what does it even mean to be successful. The definition of success that we found that we really liked is this one. It's the favorable or prosperous termination of attempts or endeavors, and it's the accomplishment of one's goals. As educators, we have to take time to consider for our students who determines what success is and how it's met. Who sets the goals? What roles do the students get? Who measures and monitors? And if we take a real critical eye to our profession, what we notice is that oftentimes it's teacher-driven and not student-driven. And so we need to think about what has been the traditional form of education versus where we want to head. And what we want to argue is that we need to provide pathways and avenues for students to be successful. So what might that look like? Well, it might look like this. If we talk about grades, when we think about hopscotch has rules. You have to start at the start. You have to put 1 foot here, 2 feet there. It's linear. You have to go through it. There's a defined end and a defined beginning. Each box, you have to participate in a way. If hopscotch were school, getting a grade would be like having to jump through hoops and jump on boxes. And we know that that's so often what our kids have to do. But what we also know is that leaves a lot of kids behind. We believe that competency-based education is more equitable for kids. And so if we think about the image on the right, what do we notice? Though we are all beginning at the same place, multiple paths open up almost immediately. Each one winds and explores a particular topic differently, but they all end up in the same place. Grades here in this context represent a continuum. It's a process, there's growth, and it provides kids opportunities to grow in skills, dispositions, and their competencies. And it also builds for them a met, not yet mindset versus being punished like so often grades are doing now.
And here we've provided you the textbook definition of competency-based education. And you can see that it really seamlessly aligns with our current district policies. This definition is purposely general to allow educators to use their judgment and allow students to tailor their learning to capitalize on their strengths and their interests. CBE is really just the next step in the progression to fulfilling the goals outlined in Vision 2020 in action and our 3 pillars. The backpack of success skills, true starting point for JCPS and moving towards CBE, as these skills articulate what success looks like, not only in each level of schooling, but also for after graduation. In the CBE world, these are called 21st century skills. PBL identifies them as soft skills. CBE puts all of our pieces under one umbrella, creating a culturally responsive environment that provides opportunities for multiple means of expression and that invites all students to actively take part in their learning is vital. Ultimately, the goal is to take learning out of the context of just the schoolhouse and put it in the context of students' lives, which in turn propels students into a more engagement with their learning. Here are some specific areas that demonstrate ways that we can continue to move from a more traditional model to a competency-based model. Many of these components are already in place. In other cases, just looking at things from a slightly different perspective. First, Flexibility in this context is providing an environment where students move through the material at their own pace rather than the class moving together. As we call it in the Army, training to standard, not to time. If the student finds a particular skill relatively easy to grasp, they can move ahead or help others in the class. If they struggle with the concept, they do not move ahead until they have demonstrated competency with that skill. As so much learning is scaffolded on prior knowledge, it just makes sense to make sure they're competent before moving on to a new skill. Next, increase the levels of student agency by allowing students to demonstrate understanding or competency in the manner that suits them best. We provide our students with our expectations and then coach them through the process of demonstrating their learning or skills. Another area is in how we provide support. Feedback and conferencing are essential in order to gauge where a student is in their learning. And instead of only providing individualized help for our lowest or highest performers, we provide support for everyone. Next, help students understand the expected outcome and what the culminating goal is. The class environment is inquiry-driven and uses performance as a means to assess. We let our students know what the final learning target is and why it's important to learn. Additionally, we need to reflect on our grading practices because competency-based education addresses 21st century skills. In addition to academic skills, we can isolate the academic content and evaluate that separately from behavioral or soft skills or 21st century skills. They're important, but evaluating them separately provides a clearer picture of our learner and allows us to address specific areas of need. We truly are assessing learning. We also want to start where they are and provide opportunities for success. And finally, because students are working somewhat independently rather than as a group, using modules that are scaffolded makes the most sense. Absolutely crucial is classwork needs to speak to the students and resonate with them as individuals. PBL and workshop models are a great fit for this.
If you don't mind, I was just thinking about how one of the best things to come out of the NTI situation is students enjoying choice and getting used to choice. And I know my team, for example, is going to be moving forward with helping schools and supporting schools with blended learning. And this goes right along with that. So I think that's great.
Well, you actually bring up a really fantastic point, and actually it's where we're heading next. If Nancy didn't prove to you already that this is not just another thing, yet the next step in the path we're already walking, we wanted to go ahead and provide this graphic to you to demonstrate that in many ways, we're already doing this. So let's just talk about standards for a second. In our traditional form of instruction, the one that we've basically done for a very long time, it's driven by some state or national level standards. Project-based learning is no different. And competency-based education is no different. It just takes it one step further by creating transparent paths for the kids and putting it in language that they truly understand. We could also look at planning. We know that we need to use backwards design. In traditional instruction, we know that's best practice. We know in project-based learning, that's best practice. And in competency-based ed, it's best practice because most of the material, if not all, is provided to students at the very beginning. The biggest mind shift that we want to get to is with grades and assessment. In CBE, it is a met, not yet philosophy. And in assessment, all assessments are available or could be available at the beginning of instruction to provide kids multiple entry points, but we also want to move to a system that is far more performance-based. When we think about that level of choice, I went ahead and talked to some of my teachers at Shawnee. One of the things that Shawnee did during NTI was we started to implement competency-based education in its light form. We gave kids multiple activities that they could do, but they had only one activity that they had to do. All the activities were scaffolded so that if a child wasn't ready to do the final task, they could work their way up. So the feedback that we've gotten from Shawnee teachers is that they've had to rethink and refine their understanding of clarity around directions and expectations and systems. They've also noticed that they've become more in a facilitator role, and that kids have had to become more agentic. And teachers are also understanding that flexibility in instruction is key. I think this picture is a really great representation of what Shawnee has done and what CBE can do. In football, if the goal is to move the ball down the field, look at all the options I as the quarterback have. If I'm the runner, if I'm X, I have a lot of options available to me to accomplish my task. All of them accomplish it. It just might be done in different ways.
So I was just thinking when you talk in the beginning that CBE is about met and not met. I'm pretty sure that's how our elementary schools are grading right now during NTI. So and again, this is horrible what we're going through, but teachers are having time to learn so many new things that I think are going to be great moving forward.
Agreed. And thinking about that elementary context, Kim, that's what you wanted to kind of speak to.
Oh, great.
Absolutely. And guys, I'm so excited to hear you make these connections to NTI, as well as the work that you've already begun at Shawnee. Now I'm going to take us into kind of a little exercise to see what this could look like in elementary school, and all throughout the presentation, throughout the remainder of it, I want you to use the hashtag CBE and JCPS so that we can kind of get the conversation started. Because as Noah discussed earlier with the crosswalk, much of the work needed to take us in the direction of CBE already exists. Now, fully developed CBE environments adopt or write both 21st century competencies and academic competencies. And JCPS has already begun this journey with the development of the backpack of success skills. A great part of working in our district lies in the fact that as teachers, we're provided with the agency ourselves to learn, explore, and grow in the field of education, which is why we're here today to talk about CBE and how we can get started. To start this conversation about a potential CBE situation in JCPS, we've selected a task from the 5th grade choice board number 4 to dig into. Needless to say, there's numerous ways to approach preparing students for inquiry tasks such as this one, which was adopted from illustrative mathematics. Throughout this presentation, as I said, continue to use the hashtag CBE and JCPS to share both your ideas on this as well as your NTI methods. When viewing math tasks like what's the weight, also consider using the 3 reads protocol from San Francisco United School District, which I've linked to this presentation. It's a close read of a complex math problem that helps students engage and make meaning of an open problem or task, asking students to consider the situation, the quantities, and even asking questions themselves about the situation. It helps students experience with these various ways and approaching problems throughout the start of the year, then it'll be easier for them to glean information when they get to a complex task like this that they need to do independently. So teachers, think about doing this 3 reads protocol from the very beginning and making it a regular routine. Well, I realize that we're talking about competency-based education. It's also worth noting that in the absence of explicitly written competency sets, here in JCPS, we're focusing on state standards. For this 5th grade math task, there is a main focus on one standard, which is MBT 1, and a cursory or anticipatory focus on the additional standard, MBT 2. In math, standards are grouped together in clusters, which in the future could indicate an additional grain level or demonstrator under a larger umbrella of competencies. So think about digging down further as we go. And in a second, I'm going to be showing you the mathematical practices, which are really an even larger overarching way to view these math standards. Now, this sample is specifically from 5th grade, but these planning practices can be applied across any grade, standard, subject, or concept. In fact, many JCPS schools have been working in a standards-based environment for many years. This is certainly on the path to CBE. And once again, continue to share these experiences with standards-based grading on Twitter using the hashtag CBE and JCPS to help us draw practical comparisons between the two. So it's worth noting that the intentional linking and communicating of the standards for mathematical practice are a critical part in our current space as we move toward a CBE environment. They're similar in nature in that they are the same grain size and larger when compared to individual standards. In fact, many academic competency sets intentionally incorporate and build upon these practices. So how might as we teachers better communicate these practices to to students? Please share your experiences about how you communicate this. I feel like many times we keep these just in our teacher grade books and teacher notes, and we need to make sure that this becomes a part of that teacher clarity process that Noah was talking about. There's a lot to layer in this conversation, and so I couldn't pass up the opportunity to talk about ZPD, because many students, in order to be successful with tasks such as this choice board example, there needs to be scaffolds built. And many times teachers get reluctant because they think, oh, my students aren't ready for that yet. Well, it's pretty important to recognize that this is an exciting opportunity for students because research shows that this is where the learning occurs. A Russian social psychologist by the name of Lev Vygotsky theorized that learning occurs as a part of this process, in lieu of Piaget's theory that dictated a child's development must precede said learning. So what's really neat about this is that the ZPD theory aligns well with CBE and personalized learning in general, because student voice and choice, as well as assessment results, are used to determine the path and pace of the learning, with the ultimate goal of becoming competent and independent. Okay, so this was just kind of our first go at organizing what this could look like. So in thinking about backwards design, you start out thinking, what do the students need to know and be able to do prior to completing the task? So for this specific task, students will need to understand the value of digits. They'll need to be able to read and write decimals, as well as understand the power of 10. Now, I recognize that this infographic overly simplifies the process, but it is a necessary first step to reach the levels of required teacher clarity for CBE or any form of personalized learning. Some of you may also look at this and wonder, how is this any different? Well, the answer to that lies in the implementation of the instruction. All of the potential mini lessons, tasks, and assessments must be created prior to instruction in these standards. Teams of teachers must agree to a shared understanding of these tasks as they delve into these smaller grain sizes within a larger standard or competency. Systems for self-assessment must also be developed to let students have a voice in their path. And these processes will look different in elementary school when compared to middle and high schools. The most important distinction for true CBE is that students are determining their own paths along a personalized progression with teacher guidance at the elementary level. So now let's zoom in a little bit to just look at, the pre-assessment would be getting students ready. It would determine whether they're going to one of those three boxes. And so we're going to zoom into understanding the powers of 10 now to kind of gain an illustration of what it might look like for students in this task. So using formative assessment in this environment becomes a true norm and not an exception. As mentioned before, students are able to progress at their own pace. So with this student agency in mind, we want to ensure that we provide students with multiple options to demonstrate their learning. So therefore, for this portion of the progression, I've outlined multiple stops for students to demonstrate their chosen path. These inquiry tasks provide students the opportunity to demonstrate that they are ready to move to the culminating task, which in this instance is choice board number 4. Now, something else to consider specifically with math is the overlayment of the CRA theory and research behind it. It considers how students also progress in their level of understanding, moving from concrete to representational and finally to abstract. Students start out using manipulatives or specific objects as concrete method for their understanding at this introductory level. As students progress, they require less physical objects and more pictures to represent their understanding. The final task, in this instance, the what's the weight choice board task, requires that students understand at an abstract level, which is critical for real world application. And that is critical for CBE as well. This level must be reached and demonstrated before being deemed competent. So lastly, one thing missing from this graphic, and I'd really love your all's opinion on it, is student feedback. Clearly, student feedback needs to be built along this process. It cannot originate solely from the teacher. So it has to be a shared responsibility and ultimately a classroom community goal to support one another as each student progresses. So how might we add student feedback to this graphic? How could you visualize it? How could you and your collaborative team implement systems right now to encourage the regular occurrence of student feedback in your classroom? Please continue to share your ideas in the chat box or on Twitter with the hashtag CBE in JCPS. So you saw on the last slide that the red boxes indicated students could demonstrate their learning with a choice of an inquiry task. So this is just one way to kind of look at how it could be organized. At the beginning, teachers would need to compile a list of these potential inquiry-based tasks ahead of any of instruction, but room should also be left at the bottom for student conceptualized tasks. In many instances, they know best how to demonstrate their learning, and with them in the lead, it could potentially be demonstrated at a deeper level than the teacher even imagined. So how might you plan for and implement an individualized path for this standard? Please continue to share. So what's really cool about this particular example, when we totally randomly selected this choice word activity, is that I work at Fraser Elementary, and a teacher, a fifth grade teacher there, had actually used this Kipton scale, or what's the weight task, last year in her classroom. So in these samples, fifth grade teacher Stephanie Burrow Carpenter takes students on a journey through this concrete, representational, and abstract understanding of the standard. She knows that students can get hung up if she were to use tricks such as add a 0 to the end. This would make them overly reliant on the teacher and her rules as the gatekeeper to this learning. So instead, her students got to experience both place value and power of 10 in multiple ways using CRA theory. The next slide shows a couple more pictures of this in action. You can see students are weighing flashlights as a concrete method before they use the interactive place value chart for representation. And it was pretty exciting because it really made them feel prepared. What I think could be added to this, I'm always thinking and wanting to talk with other teachers in JCPS. How do you communicate this CRA to students? Is this something else that, along with the competencies or standards or targets or whatever you wanted to communicate, whatever you entitle them, what level of understanding do the students know and what they're at? Because that is a huge piece in CBE, the student self-assessment piece. And so I want to continue that conversation with CRA. And once again, you can continue to chat in Twitter at the hashtag CBE and JCPS. Now, okay, some of you all may be looking at this and wondering, how are we going to put this together? Absolutely. From the table that Nancy shared earlier, there's no way that this can be a all for everyone along the process. If people are choosing different paths, then there has to be processes set up for students to move along those paths independently or with limited teacher guidance. So in the elementary world, and specifically at Fraser, teachers have become adept at using the workshop model for this. And so the task and share, the focus lesson, guided math and learning centers, as well as the guided math and learning centers, are 3 different options that teachers can select from depending on whether they're introducing a new topic or standard or whether they're really in the heat of it and students are at different points. So how might you consider and select the correct workshop model to maximize your time for students and really meet their needs? Everyone could benefit from checking out this video made by Catherine Warren, a 3rd grade teacher at Fraser Elementary. She did a great job of really explaining her thinking and how she determines it. It's also worth noting that that I spoke to teachers at Fraser as well and got some different quotes. And Miss Warren had also wondered, she was inspired by all this work and said, what kind of classroom would teachers need to create at the beginning of the year so that kids could be set up for success? What kind of low stakes task should they experience with this new process without adding standards to it in the beginning? So this is something that absolutely has to be front loaded and thought about it from the very beginning of the school year. So my last kind of share and brag here is another thing that we're doing at Fraser, and I'm really excited. And it has to do with that big picture of teacher clarity. So as we move toward a CBE environment, there has to be frameworks for curriculum. So at Fraser, we're working together to create and organize a rigorous curriculum using these resources we have, and all the certified teachers are a part of this process. So the one thing I considered that we might move toward next time is how do we ensure that we're inserting these inquiry tasks in this particular sample. And this sample, I wanted to note, does not match the choice word sample we just went over, but it just gives you one way of kind of understanding the resources that you have at a school and how you can utilize those over the course of a week or a unit. To end the section about Fraser and how amazing they are doing with some of this front-loading work, I felt like it was important to share these quotes because in a CBE environment, folks need to collaborate at a very high level. So one teacher stated, this collaborative planning approach has helped me give everyone a head start for next year so that when the year begins, an element of uncertainty has been removed. What's nice is that it doesn't matter what grade level you teach, those resources will be ready for you. And that was Heather Mills, a 3rd grade teacher. Kayla Condor, a 4th grade teacher, stated that in her 8 years of teaching, she'd never had the opportunity to work collaboratively to create a curriculum that works for teachers and meets the needs for students. So she also stated, just as it was brought up earlier, how amazing it is, especially during this time of virtual interaction, that teachers are rising to the challenge. And so I really just want to motivate all coaches and teachers to work together to start prepping for next year, because we have all gained so many new skills. And so this is a great time to put those to use in thinking about teacher clarity, personalized learning, project-based learning, CBE, all those wonderful things for the 2020-21 school year.
So to wrap this all up, we really are at a point now where we can start to look at challenges in front of us as roadblocks or opportunities. Kim said to me the other day that we both remember when Vision 2020 was being written, and she had the realization 2020 is here. So we are at a crux now where we have to actually reimagine where we go after this. So the reality is that yes, our current system is not set up to accommodate some of the concepts that are crucial to authentic implementation of CBE. But CBE is possible. There are states around this country at different levels doing it. There are schools within this state who are doing it to different levels. And when the answer to can we is yes, then we can do it. So continue the conversation, please, using hashtag CBE in JCPS.
Well, I'm just thinking about how it's amazing that, just 2 years ago, we implemented the JCPS digital backpack. And now a big way that students show what they learned is doing their backpack defense at the end of their 5th grade or 8th grade year. And so, yeah, I can see how this is, we've already introduced that into JCPS. Maybe this is the next step.
And if we've covered a lot of ground today, so if you want to look in more deeply into CBE, this last slide just has a lot of resources on there that you can check. Our Bitly will be posted on there as well. And I'm sure you can contact any of us as well if you have any more questions.
And I'm not sure if this slide deck is linked on the digital learning menu, but if it isn't, we'll get that up there ASAP.
I think I had Kathleen do that. It should be up there by now. She's pretty reliable.
Thank you all so much for this opportunity. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Kim. Thank you, Nancy. Thank you, Noah. Thank you, Maddie.
Bye. Have a great day.
Bye. Thank you, everybody. That was good information. And like I said, hashtag now. So be sure to follow CBE in JCPS. Did I get that right? At JCPS, in JCPS. CBE in JCPS. Yeah. So follow that to get more information, and their presentation should be linked on the virtual training schedule. All right, it's 1 o'clock, and next up we have Eric Caston from Middletown Elementary, a 3rd grade teacher, and he's going to be talking to us about badging. How are you doing, Eric?
I'm well. How are you doing, Stephen?
Doing great. Good to see you again.
You too.
Well, Eric did a session last week, and he talked about, like I said, 3rd grade teacher at Middletown Elementary, and he talked about how he has implemented badging to keep his students motivated during NTI. Actually, we talked, Eric and I are friends. We, talked to each other about things in education, and he was talking about how he had a star chart in your physical classroom, correct?
Yeah, it was a progress chart, and it started with keeping track of specifically their Zern assignments, which is our math program tied to Engage New York. And it was something that I kept up in the class and kept up updated regularly. The students would see it. It was right near the door as they were coming in, and they would check to see, where they were at, each day, and kind of see if they had, met the requirements for that day and for the week. And we'd celebrate each other during our class meeting. So it was something that the kids were just kind of used to seeing on a daily basis when we had, in-class school.
Yes. And so you were trying to find a way, as a lot of teachers were doing, like, how do I change up for NTI, and how do I keep my students motivated? And you came up with this great badging idea, and we just had to share it. A lot of people enjoyed it from last week, and we're glad to have you back.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, it was, one of the things that's super important to me in my classroom is my class meetings. And oftentimes, either prior to a weekend or just after a weekend, I'd ask the students to share something that they had done. And oftentimes I would hear about, the video games they were playing. which of course, meant a lot to me, and I know you too, because we're both gamers.
Yes.
And so that was kind of where the idea from this came, is I would listen to these stories about these achievements and things that they would earn, and they looked forward to it. I mean, they were excited about it. And so I just thought, hey, how can I implement that in what we're doing right now in this, more digital format?
A great way of actually, paying attention to what your kids are interested in, what motivates them, and say, okay, let's work that into what we're learning with school.
Absolutely. Yeah. Would you like me to go ahead and get
Yes,
started with
that'd be great.
Show? Sure. So I know I need to make sure I remember how to do this correctly. Yep. Share my screen.
3 dots, share your screen.
Yep. And then I want to make sure I've got my closed captions on.
Yep. Hide that. Good. Click on your presentation, whichever tab that is. There you go. Present mode. All right. You getting this down?
I think I've got it down.
All right.
How's that?
That looks great. Looking? Yep. Looks real good. Thank you, Eric.
All right. You're welcome. So I'll go ahead and I started with thinking about, some assignments that would lend themselves easily to this idea of badging. And one of the things that we created with the help of another actual website that we found was digital reading logs. And it kind of ties in with the nightly reading that we had already required our students to do each night. And so this was something that we found. We used a Google form. Every student has their own individual Google form that then populates a shared Google sheet where we can easily see what students, are reading, gives a quick summary, and we can log it that way, which helps us then with our badging. And then also our Zern online lessons, we're asking them to do 5 lessons a week or 1 a day. And then a couple weeks ago, we had the students working on an animal habitat project, and it required some research, creating a model of some sort, and a descriptive paragraph. And so with that digital reading log, that was a form that, like I said, populates that Google sheet. We're asking the students to do 5 of those a week. And when they finish up 5 of those entries, then they would receive the Rad Reader Rank 1 badge. And then since we are asking them to do it in a week, but we know everybody's situation is a little different at this time, and we're a Leader in Me school, I decided to include some of that Leader in Me verbiage into one of my badges and creating like a consistency badge or a putting first things first badge. And so that was kind of the reading end of things.
I love that because they're going to be missing out on that now that they're out of the physical school. I came from a school like that as well, where the Leader in Me, you heard about it every day. Well, now they might not be hearing about it, so you just incorporated it into the badge.
That's exactly right. Absolutely. And so, I mean, that program itself lends itself very easily to doing these different badges, because you can see if a student is working on an assignment ahead of time, if they're looking to you for feedback, if they are being proactive.
Yeah, good point.
They are, beginning with the end in mind, those types of things. Absolutely.
I guess I didn't realize how much Leader in Me was going to prepare students for NTI.
That's the truth.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, and then our Zern is very similar. We ask the students to do 5 Zern lessons a week, or 1 a day during the weekdays. And that would give them the different rank badges. And each time they would complete that, they would rank up. Just like they do in all those different video games. Each time they complete a new assignment or more to that same one, and they achieve, the next rank, then it puts them up in status. And so the same thing for if they finish it all in 1 week, and they'll get that putting first things first badge, knowing that they're getting that done. And I still have a lot of conversations with my students in our class meetings online in Google Meet, talking about, okay, so what's your schedule look like? You guys getting up and you guys putting these first things first and getting this stuff done, and being proactive about their assignments. And so it's been great to have that connection and then be able to, spotlight those students and give them these badges on their Google pages in Google Classroom.
And I love it that it's not just, you did your math, here's a badge. You did this, here's a badge. It's actually like, you're making progress, here's your rank. So there can always be a higher rank. I assume
Right.
you don't have your ranks top out. Yeah.
We know how important that is as gamers, don't we?
Yes, exactly.
True. Yeah. How have I achieved the next level or not?
Right.
And a couple weeks ago, like I said, we had the students working on an animal habitat project where they had to complete some research, create a model, and then write a descriptive paragraph that went along with the model about the habitat and the animal that adapted to live there. And so that's one of the things I really like about this site that I found for making these badges that we'll get to here in a minute is the ability to customize and individualize these badges.
And I like the way you did the one when you talk about customizing and individualizing. So, for example, your next science badge might look totally different.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, I meant to. So if I look here and come back to the math one, and besides it saying rank 1, as you and I know as gamers, usually there's some other sort of graphic that kind of goes along with that. And if you look at that Zern one, or even the putting first things first one, there's a little icon at the top, either the little pink brain from Zern or the crown. And a lot of times when they rank up in a video game or unlock that next achievement, that will increase at the top. And so they might have, 2 brains for the next one or 2 crowns for the next one to show that next rank.
And so it almost ties into like Pokemon cards in a way, almost like, you got to collect them all. Like I got the 1 brain, now I want the 2 brain.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. So, and it also makes it easier on badges like that to not have to spend so much time recreating some of those ones that you're using over and over, and you can focus on some of these more individualized and unique badges.
Yeah, so it sounds like you got a set theme, but the theme's still interesting enough that it keeps them motivated.
Right. And then I always do surprise them too.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
I like to come up with some extra badges that I don't tell them about, because one of the things that I had done at the beginning of all this is I actually typed up a letter that I shared with not just the students, but with the families as well. I use an app called Class Tag in order to communicate and kind of keep the lines of communication open with the families. I've also been using Google Voice for a number of years now. But that Class Tag app really helps me communicate and be able to send things out, documents, announcements, that sort of thing. And so I typed up a letter and explained the process of the badging to the parents, knowing that my students would be more familiar with it. But I want them to know, because you can't always rely on the communication between that child and the families being perfect. I know as having 2 kids of my own. And so I wanted the parents to be aware of what was going on as well.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And I love the communication you have with your parents. During NTI, there's a lot of schools that say this is the best parent involvement we've had, because I think before they just thought everything was being taken care of at school, but now we do need them. We need those communications lines open now more than ever. And so hopefully it'll continue post NTI.
Absolutely. I would hope so, and I would think so as well. I mean, I like to look at this time as one of change, and let's not go back to the way it was. Let's really kind of march on and move forward.
And teachers, even though they're busy with meets and still planning, but it's given them time to actually learn new things, like come to the Digital Learning Channel, learn about badging, and maybe have a chance to plan and implement that in their classrooms. So yeah, I think it's been great.
Yeah. Absolutely. So in that letter to the families that I also shared with my students in our Google Meet was, a sort of rubric that explained how to earn the reading badges, how to earn the math badges. And then we would talk about the science and social studies badges as well. But then I like to throw in, like I said, some of these extras so that they don't know what might pop up on their Google Classroom stream one day, just kind of depending on what they do. And then at the end of the week on Fridays during my class meeting on Google Meet, I share with the students, what it is that all the different badges that have been earned. I don't attach names to it at all, but it's just here are a list, and here's kind of a graphic of the badges that have been earned this week. Among your classmates. And what's really cool is some of them will see that, and of course they'll say, well, I got that one, but then they might see one that they didn't earn, and then of course ask, how could I get something like that? Like the You've Gone Above and Beyond badge, that was one where I had issued that to a few students based on the science project they were working on. And so students wanted to know how they earned that. And so it lent itself to a more natural conversation on, what is it to put forth more effort? And what does that look like?
And sorry if you are going to get to this at a later slide, but can we talk about like how the students are presented these badges, and then maybe how they share? I know how you present them and maybe how they share them. There you go. Okay, we're up next.
Yeah, absolutely. So in Google Classroom, there's the different tabs that are across the top. The one that says Stream, Classwork, People, and then for us it says Grades. And in the stream, you can share things onto the student stream, kind of like a social media feed,
Right,
or Facebook wall, if you will. And this is where I will send the students badges, and you're able to drop the badge in here and using the add button down there. And you can put these badges from the website that I create them. You can either save them to your hard drive and keep them there, or you can then upload them to your Google Drive. That way you have them there. And one of the nice things I like about that is I'm able to then share those badges with my teammates at school so that they can then also issue these badges as they would like. And so you're able to drop the badges in there with the add button. And then let's say you have, and you're working on this weekly, and you notice that you have, 15, 16 students that have completed the math lesson. You're able to then select those 15, 16 students in that tab there that says all students. When you click that, your whole list will show up. And that way you can kind of send it out to them all at once. You can type a little message in there where it says share with your class and send them a little congratulatory message. And the other thing this lends itself to then is being able to send out those individual badges, putting their names in there, letting them know they've done an amazing job. And then it shows up on their Google Classroom stream.
I'm just thinking how I am as a learner. And if I'm in a Google Classroom and I see 16 of my classmates just got a badge, it might remind me like, oh, I need to finish that, or I need to get that done. I want to get that badge. So I see how it's that extra motivation that some of these students might need during NTI time.
Absolutely. I mean, that was kind of the whole point of all this, is what got me thinking some of those students that I really wanted to reach. They were participating in the sense that they were showing up for things, but they weren't necessarily completing the assignments like I really wanted them to. And so when I started thinking about those students in particular, and some of them just happened to be those same ones that would often talk about the video games they played over the weekend, I kind of thought, this is where I can start implementing these badges with these students.
Yes. Well, way to reach those sometimes challenging to reach students. Also, so I'm thinking, so for example, when you put that above and beyond badge up on like 3 students, and then everybody sees that, can they comment on each other's stream like, oh man, how did you get that?
Well, as of right now, I have that feature of Google Classroom turned off where the kids can comment back and forth on each other's thing.
Okay.
But where we do that sharing is
Right.
in those class meets. One of the things that I've been just so impressed with and proud of my students has been my attendance in my Google Meets class meetings. My class is about 24 students, and I would say that I average around 20 students in each of those class meetings, which is just, I love it. I love being
That's
able
great.
to see those students. So that's when those discussions happen, because they see those pop up. I saw somebody had commented last week, it's kind of a digital sticker board, if you will, and that's exactly what kind of pops up. And so they can see those badges that have been earned and then ask those questions, and we can have that discussion.
Do you think, so obviously you must be doing something right in your meet that is bringing those students there every time. Do you think the badging, being able to talk about the badges and learn what new badges are coming out, has been something that's brought those students there?
I would think so. One of the things that they bring up in the meeting when it's kind of been going on, they will then some of them will start asking, can we see what badges everybody got this week? So they'll actually kind of shout that out in the Google Meet, wanting to see them. And then one of my first indicators that this was working was I started receiving emails and messages on Google Classroom. Hey, I finished this. When am I getting my badge?
Yeah.
And so I knew that they were looking forward to that and wanting that badge right away. And so, it also kind of kept me on my toes, kept me honest.
Yeah.
And, but also sent that message to me that, hey, this means something to them.
That's great. And I notice you have that have a super rad day with the Bitmoji. I don't know if you've noticed, but I certainly have that Bitmoji Classroom seems to be the new trend that is blowing up this week on the educational tweets.
I saw that on the Twitter feed, and I'm all about that. I'm going to
Yes.
see if I can create that Bitmoji Classroom and see what that looks like.
Yes.
So, but yeah, the other thing I love about the Google Classroom and being able to put these badges on there is I have added a lot of our staff members that work along with me, the ECE teachers, the assistants, the special area teachers. I've added all of them as co-teachers on my Google Classroom. And something that's been really awesome, you had asked about commenting. The students don't comment on each other's, but that allows the other teachers to then, and as another form or way to interact with those students, they've congratulated them. When they see that one of their students that they might be working with as an ECE teacher or even as a special area teacher, they've earned a badge, they jump in there and, congratulate them and tell them, what an awesome job that you've earned this badge. I'm proud of you, that sort of thing. And so it's a really cool and neat way for us to be able to stay connected in this digital way.
And I was just thinking, especially with those ECE teachers, I know a lot of times, you have to find those motivating things for their IEP and choices that they might earn. And I can see how badging could totally lead to that.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you just think like a physical fitness badge, some sort of a music badge, an art badge. I mean, it lends itself to everything that we're doing. So
you said your team's doing this, your third grade team is doing this. And the EC teachers that work with those students are active. Has it spread throughout Middletown Elementary with other staff as well?
At this point, not to my knowledge. It's just been something that we've picked up within the past few weeks and I started doing and shared. I know some of the teachers had mentioned they were going to try to either watch this live or after the fact to kind of get an idea for it. But other than on my team, not to my knowledge.
Okay. And I wanted to wait, and I'm going to edit this video, and I will get it up on the Digital Learning Channel on demand. Probably have it up there tomorrow.
Perfect.
Yes.
Perfect.
I'll let you know, and you can send it out to your staff and tweet it out.
Right on. Well, I was going to go through, if we've got some time here, I was going to go through just a real quick of how to create these badges. You can spend as much time or as little time, as you can creating them if we've got the time to kind of put one together here. I just wanted to be able to walk through what that looks like for people.
Yeah, that would be great.
All right, awesome. So the website that I'm using here is called canva.com, canva.com, and I was able to create a free account for this, and the free account offers me a lot of options. And so we go over to create design here, and I'll click that. And the one that I found that really works for the badging nicely is the one that's called logo. So that'll give me a nice square kind of canvas to work with here. And one of the things that we're working on right now that I've assigned our students is they can either work on a science project, kind of a science experiment type project, or a passion project, kind of like a genius hour type thing. And so my thoughts were, how could I incorporate something like a badge for that? And so I thought, let's see if I can't put one together. So there on the side over here is the different pieces that go along with the badge. I like to start with the background just to kind of get a feel for a background that I'd like to use. And we'll pick a cloud one here. And then elements, these are different little pictures, kind of that center part of your badge, if you will. And another thing you can do too is if you have icons or things of that sort that you'd like to use, you can upload your own images into this as well and use those, which is great.
Eric, teachers want to know, can they upload their Bitmoji?
And they can absolutely upload
Awesome.
their Bitmoji. That was one that I had done. Let's see, I've got my super rad one right here that you can absolutely upload.
All right, cool.
And I don't know if you noticed, there's another one I uploaded, another Bitmoji I uploaded here that says, how can I help? And so kind of at the beginning of this, I had sent a bunch out to my students just to kind of get them jazzed about this before I actually started issuing the ones that they had to earn. So we'll grab this guy, looks kind of like a guy thinking, and we'll add some text here.
So it kind of puts it in like word art.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And there's quite a number of different fonts. Like I said, the free account, I'm just really impressed with the access that I have, and it gives these little cheat lines or guidelines that I love.
Yes.
I'm not the most artistic person, but it gives a lot of features that kind of help me out with figuring that out. And my passion project assignment has, even though we just assigned it on Monday, I've already received a whole bunch of just amazing ideas. I spent about, I don't know, half an hour or so on the phone, or not on the phone, but Google Meet with a student today. And she's working on one, and she is going around and videotaping or video recording and recording the songs of different birds. And so she's studying all the birds that are around her house.
Man, that's great. Like, you know, just, I mean, I'm not always a look on the bright side kind of guy, but yes, just hearing the awesome things happening during NTI, it's inspirational.
It is. I mean, some of these kids are just really taking off with it. And I love it. I mean, I got to sit and help her with that project. She had some questions about converting the audio files, because the audio files that she had created did not go right into her Google Slides. They were at they were M4A, or which is an AAC format. And so I needed to change that, and we got it into an MP3 file for her.
Yes, I was, my wife found the insert audio part of Google Slides the other day. So she was all about that. But then we found, you know, most of the songs you find, they're pretty strongly copyright protected now. So it was a hard time to get like a shareable MP3, but we finally did.
So this is kind of a badge. I mean, passion project. What do you want to know? What do you want to, I need to fix that. It's always a good idea to kind of check yourself, right? What do you want to know more about? And you can spend as much time as you want going into these and changing the backgrounds and the images and that sort of thing. When you create that title, if you do the add a heading, one of the nice things, it immediately pops it up here into the title. And then again, I'm amazed at what you get for free with the free account here, because then I can go in here, I can save my badge, and then if I go back to the home screen,
so it's like it's saving it on your Canva account. So you can go in and add rank 1, rank 2, and all those things. Okay.
That's exactly right. It's saving it on my Canva account right here. And so here's a lot of the ones that I've already created. I had worked on a different passion project, one right there. And but yeah, it has a lot of them that I've done already, and just has them saved up here. So if you don't want to necessarily download it to your hard drive and have them all there, you can just kind of keep them here and use them as you will from here.
Tell us real quick about the leveling up to Big Brother one. I thought that was pretty neat.
That was, it was a couple weeks ago, or I guess what was that? Yeah, about a week and a half ago, during one of my Google Meets, our class meeting, I had a student who he was just beaming from ear to ear. I mean, just this huge smile. And he was wanting to share. And so I, called on him in the meeting, and he shared with the class that he is going to be a big brother. And he was just so excited. And he's actually one of my students that I've had kind of a tough time reaching. He joins the Google Meets, but is not necessarily completing the work like I've wanted to, or wanted him to. And so one of the things I told him, I said, I want you to be on the lookout for a badge. And so I put that leveling up, and that was the one I worked on the last time when we were here, and put that together for him. And he's a big gamer as well.
That's awesome. I think that's great. And also, I must comment, you have, I've been doing lots of these training sessions on the Digital Learning Channel. And as far as backgrounds, you're just strong, very strong with the Force.
Absolutely. I mean, I see your Star Wars back there.
Yeah, I got a little bit up there. Yes, yes.
Absolutely. Do you want me to put up that last slide with the contact information?
Yeah, that'd be great if you don't mind. And and I'm going to look through the chat right now. We have Sade Graves and Kathleen Receiver from the Digital Innovation team. They've been monitoring the chat. Just a lot of positive, like people just love Canva. I think they like seeing the examples. I think they like seeing how easy it is. So you definitely have links to Canva there, I see, and Bitmoji. Class tag. Can you tell us a little bit about class tag? I got some questions today about it. We have like 3 minutes, so if you just tell us a minute or two how you are using class tag in your class.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say, over the years, I have used several different communication apps with my families. Starting with, something like Class Dojo, which has been around a while, moved to Blooms and used Blooms for a while. And then over the past couple of years, moved to Class Tag. And, I would say it's the most similar to a Facebook style feed in the sense on what the wall looks like. I can post messages on there and share different things. I can upload documents. I can message parents if parents have either put in their email address or their phone numbers or both in some cases. It sends a message, like kind of a text message to them. And it has a place to share pictures. A couple of just other amazing features that I've loved about it, and I know some of my families have as well, is the ability to do parent conferences, parent conference sign up on it, as well as classroom parties. I can allow the room parent to have certain access, and they can create a class party event, which then they can put up items. And parents then can go on and say, oh, yeah, I'll bring that item, and lets them know real time what's going to be coming in as far as donations for class parties. And so just an amazing communication tool, like I said, to just stay connected with the families and be able to share things.
Okay, that's great. And Eric, thank you very much. I always enjoy your session, enjoy working with you. I think the badging's a great idea. And like I said, we talked about how you're using it during NTI, but when you go back to your classroom, this is going to be a thing going on in the classroom, correct?
Oh, this is it. Absolutely. Yeah. I'm having a blast doing it, just always listening to my students and listening for little things that are happening in their lives or taking place, because it doesn't have to be strictly academic. It can be things that are happening to them at home, like with the kid that was going to be a big brother. And so just being able to send stuff out to them.
So true. And like I think I said last time, I'm glad we'll have this video available for your fourth grade teachers. So when those Middletown students go to fourth grade, they're like, when do I get my badge? And you can, yes, exactly. Well, thank you very much, Eric. We appreciate it. Thanks for coming on the channel.
Oh, I appreciate the opportunity. It's been an honor.
All right. Take care. All right. It is 1:29, getting ready to be 1:30. That was Eric Hassan from Middletown Elementary. And we have his presentation is linked on the virtual training schedule. Next up, we have Amy from Amy. I miss you. It's good to see you. Yes, she's office partners. Yes, at Camp Edwards. So you did something different with your hair. I'm doing a thing where my hair just flips out like crazy on the back that I hate it.
Oh, yeah.
But yours is a different color. I like. Yes.
I've got the flipping out
yes,
too.
You got the flipping. Yes.
I think I'm going to have to get some ponytail holders soon for the first time in like 10 years.
Yes, me too.
All right. Well, today I'm going to talk about reports in Infinite Campus, and a lot has changed in Infinite Campus in the last couple of years, and they've really made some awesome changes where reports can be customized by teachers. So I wanted to take this opportunity to show these things. So I'm going to share my screen. All right. And is it small to everybody or?
It's let me wait to see how it's looking on the channel. It looks okay to me.
Okay, great.
Can you turn on closed captioning? Oh, you're just sharing never mind. You're fine.
Okay.
Yes, all good.
Alrighty. So this report that I have selected right here is the blank spreadsheet, and it's probably one of the most popular reports among teachers. And so I've done a lot of teacher trainings. I've done them since 2007 when we got Infinite Campus. And probably the first thing when I talk to teachers and say, so what have you done in Infinite Campus? What do you know how to do so far? When we have brand new teachers, usually it's run the blank spreadsheet and take attendance. Those are the first two things they learn about. And so most teachers do know how to run the blank spreadsheet. And what the blank spreadsheet has been in the past is like an Excel type spreadsheet where it has the students' names listed down the left-hand side and blank spots across the top to do whatever they need to do. Take attendance during field trips, mark down assignments temporarily, give a list of students to the subs, whatever they need to do. And so I'm in a training environment that scrambles up students' names and information, so everything is protected for privacy. And I'm just going to show a couple of things. I've created some examples for NTI scenario. And first, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create what's called a general spreadsheet. So when creating a spreadsheet in here, you can name the spreadsheet. You can choose however many columns. There's several row heights, so you can make it color if needed, if you need to record more information. I'm going to leave it at normal right now. If you have 10 to 15 columns, you can make it landscape. And then there's the option for large font, shading alternate rows, showing student number, and so forth. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click Edit Column Headers, which is a brand new option in the spreadsheet. And I'm going to call it Monday, Tuesday. I have a really hard time spelling when I'm presenting to people.
It can be stressful, but yeah, and your screen looks great. You're doing good.
All right, thank you. Thursday and Friday. And so it's easy enough. You get one here, you just keep clicking Add Column. If you've added one too many, you can click the red X. So I'm going to hit Update, and I'm going to hit Save Options, and I'm going to call this one General Spreadsheet. Now, what this is really for is so that each time you enter into one of these reports, if teachers are thinking, well, every single time I go in, I have to check this option and that option and select this. And I'd rather it be set up for me the way I want it each time I go in. So now I've got this general spreadsheet. In addition, another option that's available is to add multiple sections. So if you have a first period class, a third period class, and a fifth period class, and you want to run this spreadsheet once for all classes at the same time, you can. Now, this is an elementary example, so I'm going to add reading, intermediate advanced, math advanced, and so forth. And I'm going to choose group by section. So this spreadsheet has really improved the formatting, and these are a lot of new options. One of my favorite things that's available in Infinite Campus with all of these reports is the option to export it in multiple versions. Previously, it was only PDF, no other version. This one can be exported to CSV, which can then be turned into a Google Sheet or an Excel spreadsheet or a Google Doc or Microsoft Word. So if you wanted to export it and make it a Google Sheet and add some additional data, you could definitely do that. So what I'm going to do for this particular time is I'm just going to go ahead and hit generate PDF.
That is great information, because I know that there's some sites that we use with students, and to input them, you have to do it in CSV form. And so I didn't realize I could get from Infinite Campus. That's great.
Yes, and I should have chosen, I had more than 5 options. I must have chosen in there and not hit save. So I have all the students over here. Again, these are not real students. And then across the top, I have Monday through Friday, and then certain sections selected. So yeah, I think that the option to send it to CSV is a very beneficial option. So you can definitely create a lot of different formats. And so the nice thing is here is when you enter into this report, and you go into apply options, it's going to list all of your formats. So just as an example, I've got the general spreadsheet. If you want to go back to the way it was when you got Infinite Campus, it's just default report options. Okay. And it exits back. I'm going to come back here and just show you an example. I've got NTI week 5, and I'm going to go ahead and do generate PDF. And on this particular one, I just put the dates across the top. So let's say teachers were getting help with other people, checking in with students to see if they're participating on any particular day, or entering in assignment scores for any particular day, or anything like that. You can just go through and you have the entire week and you can keep track. This can also be really beneficial for, like I said, substitute teachers. You could always, if a teacher knows they're going to be out on any kind of leave, they can generate maybe a roster with student pictures, and also something like this. That way they can see their faces and they can have a list to keep track of if it wasn't a long-term leave and they just needed to jot down some scores for them.
It's so funny. I'm just thinking about all the times I printed off did the blank spreadsheet option, and then filled in different grades and projects and attendance things up top on my own, because I didn't realize about this. So yeah, it's great.
And year after year after year, people would say, can you send this to Excel? And I always thought, gosh, I wish we could. I wish we could. I wish we could. Why do we have something called spreadsheet that can't even go to Excel or Google Sheets? So it's really awesome that they have that option available now. So I'm just going to go ahead and take a look at a couple of other things. Are there any questions in the chat log regarding the blank spreadsheet or the options?
No, so far so good. I will try to interject if I see anything.
Great, thank you. So there's lots of reports up here, and I can either go to the left and click on reports, or I can look up here. I'm going to go to the student summary report. And as an example, there's 3 options for student summary, and it's really important to note that, because the first 2 options is a summary, and the third option is a detail. So the first 2 options will literally just show the student's grade total. The last option will show all of the assignments, all of the scores, and so forth. And like I said previously, if a teacher wanted to run this for their sections, they had to go up to the top, select a different section, and generate it each time. Now, not only can they save their report preferences and all the checkboxes they like, but they can also come up here and add it to all their sections, so that they can literally print a assignment detail report for all their sections at one time. So it's a really nice feature. You have different ways to sort it. You can sort it by student number or student name if you happen to have things listed by student number, and then alternate grade rows. So I'm going to come down here, and then maybe I said, well, for this one, maybe I don't need the category name, and I do want score and points possible, but I also want percent. Maybe I don't want to include student instructions, which is something I'm going to show in my Google Integration Infinite Campus presentations on Thursday and Friday, which I hope lots of people will tune into. I may decide not to show certain other things, and maybe this is one I want for parents to sign. So I can choose all of my options. At the bottom, as you can see, if you ever wanted to run this for just one student, you could select that student and then type in some information about that specific student. So I am going to select all students. And then, just like the other one, this is done the same way every single time. I can choose Save Options. Save. And when I want to go apply a different option, I can look up here and do Apply Options, or I can always click Default Report Options to clear my screen and go back. This one can be exported as a PDF or a doc. So a lot of these different reports have these options. Another one you may try is the labels. So you might create one format for a student-teacher label and one format for mailing. The reason why you might choose to make a format for mailing is you really don't want guardian name and to the parent or guardian of showing up at the same time. Because then, as in my example, it'll say Amy Mueller to the parent or guardian of Elliot Mueller, and then it will have the address. And sometimes people will get confused. Which one's the student? What's going on? Why is it to Amy and not Chris and Amy, or anything like that? So I would recommend setting up a format here and just choosing to the parent or guardian of. And I did learn recently that these reports stay with the teacher. So next year, the teachers do not have to set up these preferences separately. They will all be available. They just have to associate them with their new sections. So when a teacher sets these up, these will roll forward to the next school year, and whatever sections they have attached, they'll just have to be attached.
So the teacher settings follow the teacher, correct? Or
Right.
okay,
Yep.
so it's not the student. Like if a teacher sets it one way for a student, does that follow the student as well?
Well, this is really set up one way for the particular report. So
Okay.
it's really attached report that's in the teacher's gradebook.
Okay.
So next year, when the teacher goes to access that report, they'll have their settings that they set up for this year, and then they can go ahead and say, I want to grab that and attach it to all my sections.
Okay, got it.
And
Thank
it'll
you
apply
for
to a
explaining
whole
that
new
to
list
me.
of students.
Okay.
Mhm. I inquired with Infinite Campus about that yesterday and received that confirmation.
Okay.
So
Good to know.
I could choose something like this and save it and call it mailing labels, address mailing labels, and so forth. So each of these reports definitely has all of those different options. Now the gradebook export can only be sent, or no, gradebook export can be sent to multiple different options, but not PDF, not docs, not CSV, or it does CSV, but it has some kind of different options here, tab separated, XML, HTML. The main thing people will do for gradebook export is the CSV. The gradebook export will not work until there's at least one assignment in it, and what it will do is it just exports. It's kind of similar to the blank spreadsheet, but it shows the assignments going across the top as listed, and it shows the students on the left. So they are similar now that the blank spreadsheet can be exported.
Pop quiz, what does CSV stand for?
Comma separated values.
Oh, good.
Thank you.
Oh, I
Yeah.
thought I might get you with that one. Good job.
Yeah, comma separated values, which can be turned into an Excel spreadsheet or a Google Sheet, which, like you were mentioning a little bit earlier, some programs require it to be in CSV format and not Excel or Google Sheets.
Right.
And so sometimes you have to take a document and convert it.
I'm really glad you knew that because I kind of forgot. I was hoping. I knew it stood for something. Yes.
And not CVS, like the pharmacy.
Yes, correct.
Those are easy to confuse.
So easy.
So I'm going to show a couple of different options as well. Under campus instruction, underneath reports, there's also something called custom links and reports. And custom links and reports is an area where we as JCPS can insert links to tutorials or documents or reports that have been created by JCPS and make it available. So we've got lots of tutorial links here on using the messenger and different things. We've got links to documents such as how to use Campus Community and other things. We've got an NTI student participation attendance that's available to teachers to be able to run. And I always tell teachers, stay tuned or keep checking back on this every so often because we will continue to add links to things that we think are very beneficial. Another thing I always like to point out to people, and I'm going to show you a couple of things in my PowerPoint, which is also attached to that, the list of sessions that are available.
Yes, on the our virtual learning sessions, if you hover over Amy's name, you will see this presentation.
Right. Thank you. So underneath custom links and reports, something that I'm going to plan on mentioning in every one of my sessions, just so that people will know that it's available. It's something called professional development. And it is basically Infinite Campus's online university type thing. It will allow people to take a training session, a self-paced training session on their own and learn how to use things that they have access to. So as an example, if I hit next and if I want to learn about the control center, I can click on the control center. And then once I get in here, it will allow me to do a practice simulation and others, and it will show what I've completed. And so any brand new teachers or even existing teachers can come in here to professional development and learn things specific to the roles they have access to. So this is a fairly new thing that probably a lot of people have not seen or don't know is available. Okay. I'm going to flip over to my PowerPoint and just kind of point some things out here. Again, on this one, if anybody that downloads this, I'm just going to kind of point out what I have in here. I've mentioned here that you can add multiple sections, and depending on your screen size, it'll say group by section on the right or group by section right underneath it. And it will allow you to separate each report by the particular section. In the blank spreadsheet, you can add column headers. It starts off with one column header, and then you can just click Add Column to add additional columns to that. And then you'll click Save Options and hit Save. And strangely enough, even though you give it a name, that name doesn't populate over when you hit Save Options. So you have to actually type it in again here. And then it allows it to be applied underneath Apply Options. And for people that need a lot of columns, you can do portrait or you can do landscape formatting. So this shows where you click Apply Options, and then you have whatever options you have. And you can click Close. Also, you can delete one. So if you've created too many and you want to get rid of one, you'll go to Apply Options to delete it. Or you can always click on Default Report Options to go back to the very top. There's lots of different exporting and saving options available. Another example is the roster report. Now, the roster report I didn't point out specifically on the other side, but I do want to mention that it's the only one that's only available in PDF.
Okay.
And so when exporting it, there's lots of options, though. You can export it with pictures, small pictures, large pictures. Previously, the pictures could only be printed on a seating chart for teachers. You could view them in the gradebook, you could view them in the roster, but it couldn't be printed. But now you're able to print it, and apparently more than just me, apparently I'm not the only one that likes to see things a little bit in larger size. A lot of people have mentioned that the pictures were tiny before, so you can display them in small or large. You can also display household phone, address, guardian information, and so forth. So you may choose to save one copy of the roster report with real basic information, student name and picture, and so forth. And then you might have one copy with flags so that you know if they have a health flag or something. It doesn't tell you what their health warnings are. It just mentions that they have one or they have an IEP. However, people that are on the caseload, you can hover over the flag in your roster to be able to see that information. And then you may have an additional option with address and phone number and so forth. So this is just an example of how I applied the roster report. And then the student summary report, a reminder that there's 3 different versions, and the third version is the only version that is going to show you the full information about the student's gradebook. And then this screen I put together because I thought it would be really helpful to see the different types of formats. So the roster report, again, is only available in PDF format. And then here's a list of everything that's available in comma-separated values or Excel or Google Sheets. And then the third column is everything that's available to export to Word or Google Docs. And there's a lot of overlap in here. And basically all the reports are available in PDF except for the gradebook export. It does have some additional formats. It's just not available in PDF format. And then I mentioned the self-paced professional development in here. And that's, I guess I'm done. I might have talked a little quicker today than I did on my previous presentation, but I am done a little bit early. So are there any questions or comments or?
No, but I did have a question for me personally to help with my understanding of Infinite Campus. So what can be taken care of at the school level and what kind of has to be moved up to you? So there's lots of times where people are like, something's not right in my Google Classroom. And I'm like, well, it must not be right. Infinite Campus and Google Classroom talk to each other. So, ask your secretary to check this, if the student's in the right roster, if you're using the right roster. So how much can a secretary or how much can be done at a school level as far as student information and moving them around?
That's a really good question. And the confusing part is that we would redirect to the secretary for scheduling students if somebody was not in Google Classroom and they wanted to just double check to see if they were in their classroom in Infinite Campus. But if they're in their classroom in Infinite Campus, they should move over to Google Classroom.
Right.
On the elementary level, it would be the secretary. On the middle or high school level, we would have them talk to their master scheduler, and the secretary would actually not handle that. Okay. So it can be confusing depending on the level of that. But that's what we've noticed in most cases. And sometimes it's that the student was in the class and then dropped, and it's confused to whether they're there, whether they're not, if they happen to have come back. So I'm always happy to answer any questions. And I always let people know, reach out to me if they need to. So I'll give it a try and walk them through it. And if it is something that can be handled in Infinite Campus and moved around, sometimes it is that a student might be just missing one class if they're a new student or whatever.
Okay, so you would kind of say normal workflow on that to double check is if I have a teacher says Google Classroom, I put this kid in and the next day the kid's off. First, we make sure they're using the right Google Classroom, that they chose the right. Yes. So we make sure that they're using the right Google Classroom. Then if they're still having an issue, contact your secretary, or what was the middle school description? The
middle school is going to be a master scheduler. Usually it's going to be the counselors.
Okay. So then you contact that person and make sure that the kid is enrolled in the proper courses. And then if for some reason still an issue, then we can take it to you. Okay.
Yeah, and I've noticed that I've seen to where in Google Classroom the student can actually take themselves out of the classroom.
Yeah.
The awesome thing about having kids in the school system is that I can look at I can say, well, what options do they have? So I've really learned a lot about it from there. And one of my kids' teachers created their own virtual classroom for this whole thing and brought the kids in and didn't use the ones that were pulled over from Infinite Campus. Mm-hmm. And my other kiddo's teacher just used their homeroom class. Okay. So it's a variety of how people set things up as well. So did you notice, is there differences in what the students can do if it's one of those Infinite Campus rostered classes or one that the teacher it looks the same? And it seems to be the kid can remove themselves out of each. Okay. So there's not, okay, good to know. I think so. I mean, I wouldn't say I'm anywhere near anything close to an expert on Google Classroom or anything like that. But every situation I did look at in Google Classroom, there was that option available. Although I don't know if maybe sometimes they're not creating custom classrooms in Google and maybe they're just renaming it enough in Google to where it looks completely different than Infinite Campus.
Right.
I've seen some teachers are archiving their classes and maybe not realizing that they're doing that. Mm-hmm. Too. So there's lots of different scenarios. I'm learning a lot about a lot during this period of time.
Yes.
So it's definitely educational, beneficial period for me.
Oh yeah, I think everybody's growing during this period. Yes. Yes. Yeah. So if you're one of those teachers that like, oops, I can't find this class, or when you're in Google Classroom, you can go over the main setting cog and you can go down, scroll all the way down. You can see your archived classes, and you might want to go in there and say, oh, that's the class I need to be using. So, Amy, we got a few more minutes. How are you doing? Are you doing well during this whole time?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, staying busy. I'm enjoying this opportunity to be able to share this information with teachers because I've been wanting to do that anyway. I'm seeing some of these awesome things, and I'm like, oh, I wish there was a way to just let people know about all this cool stuff.
Yes, and teachers are busy, and they're still busy now. But now there's those windows where it's like, okay, I might have time to learn how to use Google Classroom now and get pretty good at it. Or, okay, I need to learn how to use Screencastify. Now's the time. So it's been a great learning time. And like you said, you're like, oh, I have these teachers' attention now. They want to do stuff with NTI and I can share it. So we're glad. Yes, we're glad you were able to do that. We're glad we have the Digital Learning Channel to share it. We will. Yes, we will get this episode edited and up on there so people can watch on demand. So when they do contact you with like, hey, I need help doing, then you can kind of refer them to the video and they'll be able to check that out and see all the different spreadsheets they can make.
Yeah. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Actually, I've adjusted. I didn't know what it was going to be like, but I've adjusted. It's good to have a routine, and I'm in this room most part of the day, and then I leave it. So yeah, but it's okay. Yeah. It's just still working, just in a different way. Yes.
It's awesome. I love all these new ways of doing things that I think are going to be really beneficial, regardless of when we're back in the school buildings and when we're not.
Yes, I'm very optimistic about the positive things that are going to come out of this time. Yes.
Yeah, me too.
Yes.
Me too.
Well, thank you very much, Amy. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You too.
Okay. Bye-bye.
So in case, I'm sure you're familiar with it, but this is the jcps.me/NTI site. And you want to make sure we have the teacher toolkit, we have student toolkit, and the parent guardian toolkit. So this isn't just for teachers to go and use. If you have parents that are contacting you and they're having issues with Google Classroom, or they need to know how to get their kid on a Meet, you can refer them to the parent guardian toolkit. But right here is where we can go in the teacher toolkit. And you see we have lots of resources in here. And you can go to the digital learning schedule. And this will show you all the programming on the digital learning channel. We have lots of live programs every day. And that was we were with Amy Mueller, and Michelle Brown, I guess, wasn't able to make it. Would like to see Michelle too, but that's on how to customize reports on campus instruction. And you can click right there and you can get that presentation. So it will show you. Right here is badging for student success that we had recently with Eric Caston from Middletown Elementary. And you can use that one as well. Coming up next, we have Andrea New with being flexible during NTI with student and parent connections. And that's coming up in just a few minutes. And then at 2:30 today, very excited for this one, elementary art during NTI with Brandy Durham. Yes, that's my wife. She is coming back to show us how she is doing art at with her Farmer Elementary students. And really, it's just, I'm proud of all the teachers I work with, but it's been really amazing to watch a teacher who wasn't using a lot of technology in her instruction and having to learn how to incorporate things. And she went through the frustration period, and now I feel like she's a pro at doing NTI with technology, and happy to have her share what she has learned. And then after Brandy, we have a couple on-demand sessions. We have building resilience during NTI, which is available on demand, and all about bullying prevention, which is available on demand. And all these training sessions will be available on demand on the JCPS Digital Learning channel. So if there's one that you just caught a bit of or heard about or want to come back and see, just come to the JCPS Digital Learning channel. We will get that up. We are busy editing those videos into bite-sized pieces and getting them posted on there for you. And let's check in. We got about 2 more minutes. Let's check in, see what's going on Twitter on the JCPS Dig In hashtag. And I'll go to latest. And right there, we got advertisements for today's shows coming up. And okay, here is, I'll be honest, I've seen this on Twitter. I need to learn more. I know there is a session coming up on the Digital Learning channel about the Bitmoji Classroom, but it seems to be the hot new thing. So if you want to learn more about Bitmoji Classroom, make sure to check that out. And that was about badging for student success that we had earlier. Deeper Learning CrossWalk, that was a great session about competency-based education. Really interesting. If you didn't get a chance to see that, look at it. It's an approach I agree with. It goes right along with blended learning and the JCPS Digital Backpack. Oh, look at that, another Bitmoji virtual classroom. I wonder if we're going to see another one show up. Okay, there's some Bitmojis. It's happening, people. Bitmoji classrooms are taking over, so make sure to learn about that. All right, let's hop back to the Hangouts. And hello. It is, we're on in 1 more minute. Yes. And so we have Andrea. Yes, Andrea is here with us. How are you, Andrea?
I'm well, thanks. How are you?
I'm doing great. Have you presented before with us? I'm sorry? Not yet. So first time. Okay, so when you go to present your presentation, I'll help talk you through it, and I'm right here to support you. So it is 2 o'clock, and I'll go ahead and let you get started. Thank you for being here.
Okay, thank you.
You gonna go ahead and share your screen?
Yeah, I'm trying to.
Okay, it's 3 dots.
Yeah, there we go. Share screen. It usually pops up somewhere else. There we go. Share screen, tab only.
And then blue button after that.
No. Share.
Yep, you are sharing.
Okay.
And now, if you don't mind, if you can come down and where it says hide that box right there.
The captions.
Yeah, and then we're going to come over, turn on captions. And then if you could click the drop down and make the choose text size large, please. Drop down right by captions. You got it. And text size large. Looks great.
There we go.
All right.
Let me go up. Okay.
Hopefully, you might have to turn closed captioning on again. I'm sorry.
There we go. Text size large?
Yeah, it looks like it's large. You're good to go. Thank you, Andrea.
Okay, thank you. Okay, hi, welcome. So I wanted to talk to everybody today about being flexible during NTI with using student and parent connections. My name is Andrea New. I teach chemistry at Atherton High School, and I am currently also a kindergarten teacher at home and a fourth grade teacher at home. So I feel the struggle for everybody. The Washington Post recently did a survey, and they asked parents, students, and teachers and administrators all sorts of different questions with the distance learning and remote learning. And their results that they had were, not shocking, but it's interesting to put it in black and white. And the first one that I came across, it was under the emotional toll. It said over 80% of parents reported that their child misses his or her classmates, and over 60% reported they miss their teacher. 58% of parents told us their child misses sports and extracurricular activities, and 39% said he or she regularly expresses feelings of loneliness. Almost 10%, about 9.5%, said their child prefers remote learning to classroom learning. Reactions were generally consistent across all grade levels. So only 10% liked being at home, and 90% really missed being at school. Well, that was the emotional toll. And then there was this tough adjustment. They got results back from teachers and administrators. They said only 19% of teachers reported having completely adjusted. Over 50% said their adjustment was difficult, and nearly 31% were, at the time of the response to the survey, still struggling to adjust. While 41% of parents reported that their child had adjusted and was able to complete assignments, 22% reported that their child was still struggling to adjust. And this was the same article is posted at the Washington Post, and I have it hyperlinked here in the title. So for the emotional toll or the tough adjustment. So it's right there if you would like to check out that article.
And I know those are nationwide numbers, and maybe I'm optimistic, but I've been super proud of our JCPS teachers during this time. I think a lot of them really adapted quickly and got through that struggling part. But I do think the things about the students, I bet that's real for our students. I see it in my students are at home, they're working hard, but you can see they miss that interaction.
Oh yes, that's what made me start thinking about like what I ended up doing with my students was because of my fourth grader. And while I know she's just in fourth grade, she doesn't have that teenage angst yet that my students are dealing with, but she still has serious concerns and misses her friends and that social interaction. And my little son, he's in kindergarten. I was seeing it in him too. And it just spills over into their home life because they can't separate it. So it's just interesting to see how nationwide numbers affect our local numbers.
Yes. Now, have you introduced your fourth grade daughter to Fortnite? Because my son is doing tons of interacting on that. Yes.
She is doing Roblox.
Ah, yes. Okay,
and,
good.
What else? Roblox and Animal Jam is what she's kind of into these
all right.
days.
I didn't know about Animal Jam, but that's good. Yeah, they're still using technology to connect. Yeah.
Well, we don't have any game system except an original Nintendo and an original Sega. So we're trying to get a Switch, but we don't have any game system. So I don't even know how you play Fortnite, that's terrible of me. But anyway, maybe it's not terrible, but
no, it's fine if you've been spared so far. But yes, I recommend the Switch. I got my wife one for Mother's Day. Yes, she likes it.
Well, we want to get like the console where not the individual one, but like the bigger one. And we can't find them anywhere, so we're just waiting till they come back on the shelves to get one.
That has been an issue.
Pay the mega price that they're being price gouged. So
no, off topic, but do not support toy scalpers. Yes, that's horrible.
Right. So to bring like that, talking about the emotional toll and the tough adjustment, here is a real adjustment from a real parent. And they wrote, geometry and chemistry sound like Greek in the classroom, but become a cruel, enigmatic joke when you have to teach Needless to say, he's falling behind, disgruntled, demoralized, and overwhelmed. NTI makes me want to, and I'll just let you fill in the blanks what the parent was saying, but they were very concerned. They're proud of their kid. The student's a real cool kid, but chemistry just was not their thing in the classroom, let alone outside the classroom. And so this is just one of the parents I did reach out to, but this was it. It just rung true to me and to my family and to my other students too. So it just really stuck with me. So we're being asked to find this new normal. And to me, that's just crazy to even think that we have, this is new normal. It's a new chaos, crisis situation, whatever you want to call it. It's the furthest thing from a new normal. Because it's not normal, and every day is not even normal. Like if something new happens, we find out new information, or something in the media scares us, or it excites us. It's just nothing is very consistent right now. So some lessons that I've learned from my daily toll recently is, so you got Spider-Man here, and he's trying to hold this ship together, but it's kind of me now. I'm trying to hold my family together along with school together. I am a mom at home. I'm a teacher at home. And I'm trying to figure out how to hold asynchronous learning with synchronous learning that we're used to. So I'm having to hold it all together, make this new normal or crazy chaos situation that we're in, try to piece it all together and try to make sense of it all.
There is a quote I keep going back to. It's we're not working from home. We're trying to work from home during a global pandemic. We're not trying to, our kids aren't just doing school at home. They're trying to do school at home during a global pandemic. So yeah, it's not normal.
Like when people say that, oh, it's homeschooling. No, it's crisis schooling. It is not homeschooling at all. So it's definitely, we're trying to just figure it out in a global pandemic.
Correct.
So one of the first things that I was trying to do is I had to find this new rhythm. And some things that I did was that I came up with a flexible, structured environment, which is kind of sounds like an oxymoron, that my students really thrive in a environment. They like rules. They like to know like when they come in, like how the day's going to operate. They like the different processes that I have in my class. They're just used to that. But so I tried to keep some structure in the class room outside of the classroom, like in the virtual world, but with a ton of flexibility, because students were telling me that, like, oh, I have a device, but I'll let my little brother or sister use it, or I'm having to hotspot, or I'm actually working, or I'm caring for a sick grandparent. So flexibility was the key to make sure that my kids have success. And I wanted to give them some structure so that they had some definite things that they could look forward to, or they knew that was going to happen every week. But it was still going to be in a situation to where, yes, this is going to occur like on a Monday, but they can work on it or look at it or go back and review it anytime that they want, even if it's not on Monday, but they know that I was going to be there. I had to come up with like a new policy, and my policy was, in order for participation to occur, I wanted for them to get the grade for participating. I wanted my students to at least do 60%, because let's be honest, kids can come to the classroom, and if they have some vital signs and they do a little bit of work, they can probably pull off a 60. Now that's not an A, but they're moving on to the next grade. So I had to realize that, like, well, if students do 60%, then that is at least participating, because who knows what's going on at home. I know that I'm very fortunate and blessed to have the home that I have, but I also recognize that not everybody is comfortable as I do. So I wanted to make sure that I was being understanding of that. We were encouraged to do weekly lessons rather than daily lessons. So I would come up with something for them to do the entire week. It would be either in like a Google Slides scenario where they would do all the different lessons, and I would give them suggested, like, so many slides would be lesson 1 and like X number of slides would be lesson 2, but I would have kids do it all in one day, or I'd have kids take the whole week. It didn't matter, but it was just as long as that they were doing They were just getting it done, and they had the entire week to do it. In fact, I upload stuff on Sunday, and I put my due dates, which are kind of arbitrary, but I put the due dates in for Sundays because I know students like to have a deadline. So I would put it the following Sunday. But I'm going to accept it late, again, because I don't know what's going on in all these students' homes. I did all kinds of different things that I would normally do. I created, I took the district's idea of their choice boards, but I turned them like content-specific choice boards. The students seem to really like those. I did a ton of reviews. Like if I did one lesson of things, I would give them another whole week of just review type lessons where I would give them extra videos to watch on YouTube, especially because they hear it from me, but then they can learn it from another point of view that's from someone who's established on YouTube. And then they could quizzes on Google Forms. I've done a ton of video lessons myself. I've even incorporated my own children in the videos, mainly to like put some silliness in it to break the monotony so the kids also can see me and they see that I'm a human and that we're all dealing with it also.
I bet they really like that.
Yeah. And I also would just do typically just 4 lessons a week. So that way they have that 5th day during the school week, whatever they need to do to help them get caught up or just my kids, they call it the sharpening the saw. So, you know, it's my own children do. So from their school. So I don't know what high school kids would want to call it, but just a break or just because I know that it's mind numbing sometimes to sit at home all day long. And last but not least, I would host a variety of Q&A Google Meet sessions where they're not required, but kids can come in and ask questions, come and go. They can hang out. I have one kid who comes to every single one just to say hello, and she hangs out for quite some time. And then it's sweet, and I'm glad that she's there. The next thing I did is I was always checking in and reaching out. I did a weekly Google form check-in, definitely to my students, and I would ask them every Friday, do you need more time? Do you need more help? And then I'd also ask them, what can Miss New do better next week? I'm very receptive and open to positive criticism. I wanted to make sure that I was doing my best for them. And when kids say, oh, you're giving me too much work, the majority of the kids are not saying that. So I know that that's just just normal teenage, just them being silly or annoyed at having to do any work at all. But if kids are saying like, hey, I really liked the videos this week, or I really like the way you did that, or, whatever, I really took that to heart and really tried to make it even better the next week for the students. Most of the students would respond to these check-ins. Even if they didn't do the assignments, they would at least do this. But then what started happening by week 2, like they were off for the 2 weeks and then they had spring break. And then, so now it's been technically 5 weeks since I've seen some students, but just technically of week 2 of our true NTI, I had not heard from some students, and the parent inside me started to worry. So that's when I started contacting parents and guardians of the students who were not participating. Now, we have a great team in Atherton who we send our no contacts, like when students don't contact us, or we don't hear from them, we give it to them and they contact them. And for the most part, the students would say, hey, Miss New, I got a message saying I needed to contact you. I'm here, I'm safe, I'm okay. And I'm like, that's great. But I had still several who were not. And typically, these kids were pretty good kids at school. So I was really starting to worry. So me contacting parents and guardians was definitely coming from a place of compassion, not a concern of failing. Like I just needed to know that these kids were okay. Because there's just so many different things going on in these kids' lives that we just can't even predict what could be happening. So here's what I got. And I had to start diagnosing all these parent conversations and figure out what parents were really saying to me. They were saying, like, I thought my kid was just doing the work. I just assumed my kid could do it. They're in high school. My kid is overwhelmed. My kid said they just don't get it. I've never had to worry about my kid's academic performance before. They are so isolated and alone. And that second to last one where they said, I've never had to worry about my kid's performance before, that one came up multiple times where parents just assumed that their kids were just doing it and they've never had to be that parent to stay on kids. But then these these kids, when they were left to their own vices, they just weren't doing anything, and they were just not being engaged in the world at all. And that's what started to worry me, because I needed these kids to recognize that in order to survive this situation that we're in, you still have to be engaged. You can't just, curl up and like become a hermit crab and not see the world. We have to like actually engage for us to truly be better. So, because of all those contacts with my parents, I started having to like differentiate one-on-one. And I want to be very clear that all the contacts that I've had were very positive. The parents were extremely receptive and thankful that I was reaching out. They had even, because I was nervous that if I did contact, because I hated for them to get a third or fourth contact because someone else was already contacting them. But again, mine was like, if I could really help a parent help their kid who they see struggling all the time during this crisis, I wanted to be able to do that, because I would want somebody to help my kid. Because my fourth grader, I had to, I contacted her teacher, and I was just like, no, something's happening, and she missed out on a Google Meet. Can we do something? And that teacher was so kind and came right back on and was very receptive to helping. So I know that the teachers are out there really wanting to help parents.
I think all the teachers are being helpful and flexible as far as I know. I just think some parents are overwhelmed and maybe don't really know the full spectrum of what's going on with their students in the NTI.
Yes. And like, it's nice if you can, that's something I was going to show like on here, like things that I have been doing. Each contact with the parents have given me a new hurdle. I work with students at what I call reasonably odd hours, like the school hours, a school day, that's just thrown out the window. Like my school day for me to work with my students doesn't start until about noon. Why? Because I am a kindergarten teacher and a fourth grade teacher from about 9 to 11:30. And I try to get their stuff all done. So that way I can just have them do whatever they need to do the rest of the day and play and kind of stay out of my hair so I can actually do my job.
Plus, your high school students probably aren't up until noon anyways.
Yeah, most of them are not up either, so it's fine. But if a kid was emailing me or a parent would email me, I was calling like at 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock. I was doing Google Meets at 7, 8 o'clock. Now I kind of have a rule of like anything past 9 o'clock, I don't do. That's just out of normal common courtesy. But I was definitely meeting up with parents and students with on Google Meet, so I could at least share my screen, because I had like a parent who told me, "Oh, well, my kids turned everything in." Well, I just showed her on the screen. I was like, they've not turned it all in. Or I had another kid, they said they turned it in, and they hit turn in, but there was no work uploaded. Mm-hmm. So then I had to go back and I think they just thought that they just had to look at something. They didn't have to actually complete it. So, maybe they were trying to pull one over on me. I would like to think that they just made the mistake. But I would share my screen at these special Google Meets, and I would show parents and students like where things were and how to access them. So that became very just invaluable to parents, so they could actually see like how to do things. I also started creating other alternate assignments to meet the technology demands, because some kids, they just couldn't get to it because they only had one device. It was something easier they could do on their phone. So I found some just tutorials that would match my content that were just pre-made online. So that worked out beautifully. I also found different ways to advocate for kids. I had some students who come to find out they didn't have any internet, and so they weren't able to get anything. And so I ended up getting them some hotspots, which I know that they were able to do it, but somehow the parent missed that one and missed how to fill out the form or whatever it was. They missed it and they weren't able to do it. So I helped them get that. A cool one though that worked out is that when I would call parents, I actually, talked to the kid also, and me kind of talking to them about doing their chemistry work also spurred them into action and getting their other stuff done too. So the parent would respond back to me later and like saying, "Hey, thanks. Just because of your class, even though I know that they had a decent grade, now they're really working in their other classes too. They recognize that it really does matter, that the teachers do care."
That's great. I'm just thinking, like, before, when teachers were with the students so often, most parent communication was, why isn't your kid at school today? Your kid is misbehaving. So it
Right.
wasn't really that positive. But now the communication is, hey, I want to check in on your kid. Is everything going okay? Or is there
Right.
something I can help you with? Which is a
Right.
totally different approach. So yeah, you're building this bond with these parents that'll hopefully continue post NTI.
Hope so. Yeah. I've had one parent had several interactions, positive interactions in the past. So it was really nice for them. They recognized, they're like, oh, this is she really does care about my kid. So that was really nice that they recognized that. And last but not least, I've had about thankfully just three kids that I've gotten them some other types of help too in regards of like mental health and getting them a mental health professional on their side, because that's way above my pay grade and out of my wheelhouse of how to help a kid in that aspect. But I knew that they really needed it. And chemistry was the last thing that I was concerned about for them. So even like during this normal school year, when if a kid is out sick, for whatever reason for several days, they always ask me like, hey, can I have all my makeup work? And I'm like, I'd rather you focus on getting better. You give me a day after school or something, we'll get you caught right back up. I'm not too worried about it, because a healthy kid is a kid who can learn. But a kid who's not healthy can't really learn very well. So I was more focused on my students getting the mental health that they needed. So I was glad to be able to do that for them.
That's great. Were you able to do that through JCPS channels?
Well, I contacted my assistant principals,
Okay.
and then they got me in touch with the mental health professionals
Great.
at my school. And then because I also contacted the guidance counselors, and they helped me too also. But so it was just really good to be able to get these kids.
That's great. Yeah.
So it was all through JCPS. And like, I know I've contacted the mental health professional about one kid, and like a follow-up, and she said that the kid his parent had told him that they didn't have insurance, and she's like, well, it's okay because I work with the school, so I can.
That's great. Okay, good. That's good to hear.
It was really good to know that she was getting the mental health professional was helping the student with what they needed.
So it's there, and there's people out there having a hard time to cope. We're lucky that we're still in a profession that is staying employed and paid at this time, but that's not the case for everybody. And I can't imagine being in one of those families at this time. So yeah, that's good that there's that support there for them.
Right. This slide here, I just put out because I just wanted to show people that the things that are in purple are the things that, like when I said that I gave my kids some structure for the classroom, for them to expect, like every Sunday, I would upload all the new lessons. And without a doubt, I would expect to see at least there's 2 kids every Monday. They already had it all done because they were excited to get it on Sunday night. Now, the majority of my students, they're not like that. They were not even looking at it on Sunday. But then they would expect me to know that I was going to start looking at last week's lessons on Monday, and then putting those assignments in Infinite Campus to let them know that I had looked at them and commented on them. And then Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, I would host a Q&A sessions. And there was 3 of us that had some chemistry classes together, so that we all work really well together, and we would co-host these sessions. And then last but not least, on Fridays, I would always send out the weekly check-in form. So that way they would always expect to see that. So those are the things that I definitely put in place that were pretty structured on those specific days. The rest of it's all here in white. Those are the things that just kind of happen. Like the whole time of the week, I'm responding to emails and private comments and making phone calls. And that is nothing that I'm doing special. Everybody's doing this, and I recognize that. And I also recognize that everybody, I wrote mom, but it could be dad. But I'm being a mom, a chef, a custodian, a teacher. I'm being all the things. And so on top of it all, so I recognize that you just have to fit it in where you can fit it in. So that's why being flexible is the thing to do. And then I also, I grade and I'll comment when I need it on late work. And again, I say late work because I was accepting it late as long as kids were getting it to me. But it really didn't matter at what point. Now, that's a completely different policy than I have at school, because I think obviously turning things in on time is a good skill and lesson to learn for the real world. You can't be late on everything, but we're not in normal world. We're in pandemic world.
So
things. And then I also would work with my PLC members to plan the following week's lessons throughout Monday through Friday. And I didn't even put Saturday on there because I would try to take Saturday for myself and my family. But there were times where I was contacting parents, just whenever that they can get through. Because when I would send out the weekly check-in form to parents, I've only done that twice now. And I did that through like an Infinite Campus, the message center there you can do to send it to all the parents who have emails. They would just tell me times to contact, and Saturday was one of the times for me to contact them. So that same parent that was concerned, this is what she said in the end of her email. She goes, "In this time we were all so isolated and alone, they didn't make me feel alone as a parent. They turned an emotional roller coaster into a pragmatic plan. He already feels done because it takes him twice as long sometimes, and their accommodations were a godsend. I felt that they genuinely cared about my kid. From the bottom of my heart, I'm so grateful. Just wanted you to know that despite the distance, your teachers are still touching some lives." And this parent sent this to my principal, and my principal sent it to me. And he sent it to some other people, hence I'm here. But it was very lovely that she thought to tell my principal that I was doing something to her kid. So I was grateful that she said that. So just a little compassion, a long way for this woman and her son.
And that's great. And I mean, I'm sure you're an excellent teacher and have support your students and your parents, but really that whole exchange might not have happened were it not for NTI. And I think, the parent and the student and yours relationship is better because of it.
Of course, yes. And I hate that, I'm not going to have a chance with that student again, because when we go back, they're not going to be in chemistry class anymore. But hopefully they'll stop by and see me, and they'll know that they can trust me and I can help them in other stuff. But last but not least, I just want to point out what we're really learning from NTI is that teachers are worth their weight in gold. And I know this is kind of silly, but everybody's probably seen this meme that Shonda Rhimes has put out about how the teachers deserve to make $1 billion a year or even a week. It's because I think parents are starting to see that we are reaching out, and we need to recognize that teachers, we do care about our students, and we care about our parents too. If we can help them find a way to help, have them help their own students, we'll do that too. But I just want to applaud all the teachers, because all of my friends that I work with, they have been great, and they've all been so understanding. And I just hope everybody is getting emails that I've been getting of thanks, parents, because they are seeing that we are there to help their students.
Yes, and I believe you are a great example of that. The Digital Learning Channel is kind of to spotlight good things going on in JCPS and have allowed teachers to share what they're going through. And I think you're a great example of someone who's really stepping up during NTI to take care of your students. And also you're taking care of your own kids at home and you're balancing that. Yeah. So that's great.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. We appreciate having you on here. And her slide presentation is connected on the virtual training schedule. And so you're welcome to get a copy of that. Thank you very much. Well, it is 2:30.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. It is 2:30. I've been looking forward to this all day. We have Brandy Durham, farmer art teacher superstar. She's here to talk to us about art during NTI. And before that, though, I just want to, since she doesn't love to toot her own horn, Brandy and I have been together through this whole NTI experience. She's in her room at our house, and I'm in my room at the house where we do our work. But Brandy was a great art teacher, but she didn't use a ton of technology. And then she was put in this NTI situation where she had to learn how to do great art instruction with students even though she wasn't seeing them daily. And so she kind of went through the struggles like, okay, I need to learn Google Classroom. I need to learn Google Meet. I need to learn Screencastify. And like many of you, she was frustrated at first, but she fought through that, persevered. And now I think she's a prime example of teachers that have really learned a lot, gained some new tools during this NTI period, and are using those tools to make their instruction even better. So Brandy, thank you for joining us. We're happy to have you here.
Thank you.
So if you want to kind of share what you've been through, or you're welcome to go ahead and go through your presentation.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and start. I'm going to present.
3 dots. And then you want to present your whole.
Sorry, I don't see it. I'm sorry, I don't see the 3 dots.
Top right corner.
Oh, and I want to make sure that I can see all my tabs.
Okay, so you want to make sure you're presenting not just a window or a tab, but the whole screen. So you're going to go share my screen, and then there should be the first option will be to share the whole screen. And you click on that like window and then click the blue button.
Do I need to go into presenter mode first?
No, you don't. So 3 dots. And then you should say, okay. And then choose share screen.
I'm sorry, I am not seeing that.
Hey, everybody. Okay. But where's the meat? Get me back in the meat. Okay. Hey, everybody. I'm here for we're gonna share screen.
I don't think I was on.
Then you're gonna share your entire screen. Then share. Then we're gonna hide this. Sorry, I'm a little out of breath. And then where's your presentation? Or what do you want to show? All right, you're right there. And then to turn on captions, click there and drop down. Large, you're good. And then, sorry. All right, and then you can hop on your tabs and we'll see it.
Okay. Right. Sorry about that, everybody.
I'll be right back.
Got confused. Anyway, hi, welcome. I'm Brandy, and I just was going to share a little bit about what I'm doing during NTI. The first thing that I wanted to talk about is the importance of planning. So when I planned all my lessons, I took these things into consideration. Family device access. So I was thinking, what if the family got one Chromebook and they have several kids that need to use that Chromebook? Or let's say they didn't get a Chromebook, they only have one device at home and they all have to share it. So I wanted to have my lessons to where you could just get on your device, look at the lesson, and go do it. That way it would free it up for someone else to use. Also, I wanted to consider materials. So I wanted to make sure that if you have no materials, then I was trying to plan lessons that would some be all digital. Now that would interfere with the family access, but I was just trying to think of different scenarios. I also wanted to think about the art enthusiast, the people that cannot get enough art. So take this lesson and go above and beyond. And then, of course, the flexibility. As long as they were doing some art, I'm going to be fine with that. And if it's in any way what I wanted them to do in some way. And then presentation, because really for kids in elementary school, presenting their art is their favorite thing. They're usually very proud of it, and they want me to see it, and they want other people to see it. So those were my challenges and the things that I was considering when I started planning. So what my team and I did is we created a choice board. All right. This is a copy of the choice board for this week for 5th grade. Art is first. Then the next page is, I think, music, then PE, then STEM. And so most every week we have included 2 choices. As you can see, we have a choice 1 and we have a choice 2. Everything that they need is, every link and everything that they would need is on this page. Okay. I wanted to try to make it stuff that they might actually be doing or that they might have fun doing. I didn't want it to seem like a lot of work. And then for the art enthusiast, I included a 3rd draw with Miss Durham. All right. So let's look at draw with Miss Durham.
So we're always
This right
talking
here,
about we're always talking about differentiation, and so you're basically like scaffolding your choices to where, do you have supplies? You can do this. If you don't have supplies, you can do this one. If you have technology, you can do this. If you don't, you can do. So you are covering. You've been very mindful of the situation in which your students might be in when planning your NTI lessons.
Right. Yes. So let's start off here. So let's just completely optional, but it's called Draw with Miss Durham, and this is on their choice board. So if they click this icon, it's always a paint palette. It'll take them to this page, and it's the same every week. It just has a different drawings. So this is this week's, and so for this week they needed on Tuesday's lesson, it was drawing this staircase, and all that they needed was pencil and paper and a black marker. Now today what we did was we did a unicorn, and you needed some coloring tools, but I let them do the coloring tools. They can color on their own if they want to.
That's a great idea. They actually,
and then
you tell them what tools they might need before they attend. So if they're like, oh, I don't have that, then maybe that's not the Draw with Miss Durham for them.
Right. And then at first I wasn't getting a lot of people. So I started advertising this in the newsletter and explaining to them, hey, look for this little icon, because if you click it, it'll give you more options. This was last week's, but I just wanted to show what I put in the school newsletter every week. And I also send this to all the teachers, and I ask them to post it in their Google Classroom and send it out on Remind to remember Draw with Miss Durham. Now today, I was really happy. I had my highest number, 32 people.
That's
today.
great.
So yeah, I was really happy about that.
And those kids are so excited to see you and Draw with Miss Durham. I've been able to listen in on a couple. Yeah.
They really are happy about it. So that's how I kind of deal with the art enthusiast.
Then I try to create stuff that they will like and possibly be doing. So here this week, the choice for number one choice every grade gets is sidewalk chalk. And if they click the picture, then it takes them to to the lesson. And it so on here it says, create sidewalk chalk. I'm trying to get them to be interactive with it, and it shows them some ideas. And then let's say they don't have any sidewalk chalk. Right here is a homemade recipe on how to make it. It's very simple. It's just three ingredients. Then I also have another link included. So that's how to make it. Then I have another link included of more ideas on Pinterest if they need more ideas.
So sometimes creative types need inspiration, correct?
Absolutely. I do.
Yeah.
So then I have them. So then that brings me to my other consideration is sharing and presenting, because that is one of the standards for visual arts is presenting it. So I have made on most lessons a slideshow. Well, I call them a virtual art gallery. So if you look right here, it says share your pictures on Twitter at Farmer Art Room, or add your artwork to our virtual gallery so your classmates can see your design. So then if they click here, it's going to take them to the sidewalk chalk slideshow that I made. Okay. And so what I do is I make these in advance, and then I make all the slides. You can decide which kind of slides you want. So I've chosen this blank slide with just a spot down here for their name. And then I actually go in and I do 2 of the slides of me. So here, is a picture of me, and here's one too. So that gives them an idea of what I want. So we can look at a couple of these.
And while we're looking at those, you and I talked about the best way. You're like, so my kids are going to be sending me this art. What's the best way to display it so they can all see each other's art? And I recommended the Google Slides, and we talked about putting it in the gallery view. But one of the concerns you had was, do we put their name on it? And you were afraid that students would be hopping on each other's slide and, not putting it in the right place. But you found the students actually claim their own slide. They insert their art, and they don't mess with the other students' slides, do they?
So far, and this is week 6, and I started this probably about week 2, maybe 3, is that I haven't had any complaints that anyone has put their stuff over someone else's slide. Also, the first few weeks, I attached a how-to. I did a screencastify on how to add a slide, how to add your photo to a slide. That was always on the choice board too. It was like, but we're past that now. But here's all the blank ones are ones that need to be filled. Now you can see here, these girls have already gone through and they have created their background and put their name on there so that they can claim a spot.
Gotcha.
But they really are really serious about it, and they really like it.
Brandy,
and I like it too. Now, some people send it to me, and I put it on for them. So if they send it to me in an email, I'll say, thank you. I'll put this in the slideshow, and the parents always like, thanks, I didn't know how to do it. But it's fine. This one's really cute. It's the Up House from the movie Up. And they're doing all kinds of fun stuff.
That's very cool.
A butterfly, and yeah. So So that is how I do a lot of stuff. For 5th grade this week, every week for 4th and 5th grade, we have been practicing shading. And so we are at the final grand finale of how to shade, and that's when you draw the eye, and that's something that we do at school every year, and then I put their eyes up. But here is how I do that. I always add a video. If they click the video here, it would take them to show them how to do that. And then here's another slideshow that I've already created. Now, it's totally different, and I haven't gone through and taken all the names off that, so I'm not going to share that. So then I had some lesson ideas for you, maybe to help you along. This was something that actually, I think it was a district suggestion, but my principal wanted the teachers to encourage students to create a poster and then post it on Twitter. So this was one of the choices one week. Actually, I think this was for K through 3. There was only one choice that week. And this was create a poster and post it. And then I showed them. I told them, I want you to thank essential workers. I included a video right here from YouTube to inspire them. Then, of course, I made one on my own. I included the hashtags that I wanted them to put on there. And then I gave them some websites they can go to, some links here on how to draw stuff, because a lot of times they want to know that they can do a really good job. So here were a few. And then, of course, try to cover, if you have no supplies, no problem. You can go to Toy Theater right here and click Art, and then click My Room, and then you can create a digital poster. And I also showed them on this lesson, Screencastify, of how to take a picture of it, I think.
So if you had a student that didn't have a lot of time with a device and didn't have a lot of supplies, they could do an art on here for 10 minutes.
Right. And that's what I wanted to show you. This is a really cool website, and it has all these different art things. And this has actually been one of my choices for, I think, K through 3 sometimes, is just get on here and make stuff. So like the lesson that I told them, they could get on here and they were to pick the sign, and they can make a background, and then there's little stickers here, and you can pick a sticker and size it up the way you want it. And it even has letters so that you could, do the thank you part. And so I did one of those so that they could see what it looked like. I think I was right there. After that, what I did was, after they posted them on Twitter, here's one that was posted on Twitter. She wanted to thank everybody in need of this time. And then here he is. And they tagged me, and they tagged the JCPS at home like they were supposed to. And he just made, his thank you. We had several that did that. Not everybody posted it, but they at least sent it to me. So then what I was able to do is I made this slideshow myself, because this was the first one we did. And I was leery of whether or not to have them add their own slide. So I made this, and I actually learned how to put music to it. You just go into insert, and then you do audio, but your music has to be in your drive. Has to be an MP3 in your drive, just so you know. But then what I did was I put this in the newsletter, and everybody was so excited to see it, and they got to see themselves. And here's a grid view of all of them. And I had some teachers even do it. So, we were pretty proud of that.
And that's great. And I love that we were talking about how there's the 10-minute art lesson a student can do if that's all they can do. But like you said, that art enthusiast, if they wanted to learn how to draw a nurse and wanted to learn how to draw, they could, if they're sitting at home bored and they like art, you are giving them those tools. And I think that's great.
Right. Yeah. Like this, that's not a 10-minute job.
No.
You put a lot of work into that. And something like this, that would take a while.
Yes.
Look at that. I mean, that's a lot of work. So it's just about how much you want. Here's one where she did on the.
Okay. And she did that with that site you told us about.
Even got her picture on there.
Cool.
So, I mean, yeah. It's a really good lesson, and I think and a lot of parents is.
You're fine. Sorry, we lost audio for a second. You're fine.
Okay.
Make sure to show them living art
there's a lesson
and memes. Yes.
I'm sorry?
Make sure you show them, we have like 8 minutes to go. Make sure you show them the living art lesson yeah, that's a good one. And still life or memes, whichever you want to show.
Okay. Well, we'll do the living art. This has this has been really popular, and I did the same thing, except I had the kids. I create the slideshow, then I add one of myself. Here's mine, and then they add them, and you can see they have done an amazing job. Like I went through and took off all the names of the kids so I could show you I was so proud of them. I put it in the newsletter. I sent it to all the teachers, and I've been getting so many comments. I mean, they are really, really good, and they're unique. There's only 2 of them that are duplicates where they did the same piece of art, but they look very different. Look at that. That's very creative. So once again, you could spend as much time as you wanted on this.
And the students they're not doing this because they're being, told they have to get a certain grade. They're doing this because they're excited to do it.
Right. I mean, that's, I love this one. He really did this. I thought maybe this was like a picture from the internet. It was so good. But then I talked to his mom in email, and she said, no, he really did it. He spent a lot of time setting all that up.
And actually, you even had a parent, didn't you have a parent say, my kid is spending too much time on art. They're not getting their math work done. Yes. Well, the problem is,
he wouldn't stop making stuff on that digital channel or that digital thing that I showed you.
Yeah.
This is another lesson. I did a screencastify on this, and what I did is just made a slideshow, and
I resemble that meme.
Screencastified over it like I was teaching them, and it's memes. And this is something that is special if you're in 5th grade that you get to do during iPad week. And since we didn't get to have that, I made this slideshow explaining to them what memes were, showing them some memes. Then I gave them their assignment. One of the most important things was that they needed to use a saying, and we haven't done this actually, this is next week.
Okay.
They need to do a saying from my list. If they make up their own, they have to get it approved before they can post it. And so they're reading these memes. Here's the list. They choose one and then they have to create it using a picture of them or their family. And then here's the steps that show them like how to create the meme. Of course, we don't have any memes yet because I haven't given the
let's see your examples.
I just want to show you what a blank one looks like. Okay, so I create it, and then I create some on my own. And then they have these that they can add. So that's what it will look like next week when they get it. I also had a still life that's coming up. And this is where I just did my slideshow, but I just talked over it. Okay.
And you did that with Screencastify?
Much. That was using Screencastify. Yeah. I was just going to show you all that. And I think I went over everything that I was nervous about getting to.
All right, great. So what would you say was the biggest challenge you faced as far as figuring out how to get your students creating art during NTI?
Probably that I was told that they needed to spend about 15 minutes. So trying to plan an art lesson and make it fit into 15 minutes is really hard.
And so, but I think you did a great job of that because you're right. The teachers, especially special area teachers, you get 50 minutes to cover the content. So if you need to show them a video on what you want them to do, give them directions, manage the materials, give them time to create. Creating art it's not always a 10-minute job, but I think you've done an excellent job of showing kids that, hey, if you are in a situation where you have limited time, limited materials, limited technology, you can do it this way. But if you love art and you really want, and you're bored today and you want to make some art and come draw with Miss Derm, by all means, I'm going to give you the tools to do that. What of this? You've learned. Sorry, go ahead. I know we have an audio delay for some reason, I guess in the same house. We don't normally it's not people in the same building. So out of this, I know you learned Google Classroom. I know you learned Google Meet, and I know you learned Screencastify and multiple other tools. What do you think you will be taking back with you when you return to the physical classroom?
I think for sure, like I was just going to pull up my fifth grade classroom because I have been using Google Classroom with them. They have the choice board, but I actually also post the lessons in here, and this is where they can find like how to like this. Here's their lesson, and it's how to add artwork to the slideshow.
Okay.
This is one from the past.
So you did a Screencastify to show them the technology part, like, hey, this is how you insert that. Right. And as we can see, your kids are taking off with that because they're inserting, even when they do it on something else, they're inserting a picture of themselves just because they know how to insert those images now, which is great. So you're doing technology instruction along with art instruction.
Yeah, I am. And they've done a great job. I think when I go back to the classroom, I will definitely have some kind of virtual gallery. I don't know yet if I'm going to do it on Artsonia. I couldn't do it on Artsonia now because I didn't have parent permission, and that was just going to be a nightmare trying to get 780 signatures to approve that their kids' art could be on Artsonia. But this is a good idea too, because then it could go right to their backpack if they did something.
Yes.
So I'm definitely going to do a virtual gallery, and I'm probably going to do Screencastify for when I'm not there, when I'm absent.
Okay, I think that's a great idea. And I also noticed that you've done a great example of giving students not just one choice or two choices, but multiple choices. Have you learned how important choice is during this time? And do you think you're going to take that back to the regular classroom?
Yeah, I do a lot of choice in my room. Like there's free choice if they get finished. There's lots of things that they can choose. And if I have an assignment and someone, Miss Durham, I don't want to draw the cupcake. I want to draw a cake. Okay, draw the cake. You're drawing. It's fine.
Yes.
I do want to have maybe more where we do more choice, like free choice, and just have a guiding question, like with the sidewalk chalk, like this, we're doing sidewalk chalk, but they're doing anything they want.
So you're giving them the tools, you're giving them some ideas, and then go be creative. Yeah. Yes. Well, thank you very much. It was great. I love your student examples are amazing. I'm glad we got to share those on the Digital Learning Channel. And thank you for sharing your journey about how you've come to learn and use all these tools, just like many teachers in JCPS. And I always enjoy having you on the show. You're welcome to come back anytime and share any of the great work you're doing. Thank you very much.
Thanks. I did just want to say one last thing about the living art. That lesson was actually from a friend of mine from Bloom Elementary. She gave that to me, and I loved it. And it was a challenge from the Getty Museum in California. So we're going to post them, and we're going to tag the Getty Museum.
Well, that's great. And you bring up a good point that especially during this time, someone mentioned sharing is caring. And I think it's great that so many people are sharing, and hopefully someone will get an idea from today's session and they'll use that with their students. Because at the end, if it affects student learning, that's what it's all about, and students having great learning experiences. So thank you so much, Brandy. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
And that concludes our live programming for today on the JCPS Digital Learning Channel. We'll be back tomorrow, and actually, I believe I will be your moderator tomorrow afternoon. So I'll see you then, and until then, feel free to enjoy any on-demand episodes. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Take care of yourself and take care of each other. Thank you.